Hello everyone. Tomorrow's India is in Mumbai to meet Mr. Partho Bhowmick, founder of Blind with Camera and Beyond Sight Foundation. An avid photographer himself, he holds photography workshop for visually impaired and exhibits their work across India. Mr. Partho Bhowmick helps them experience life-enhancing power of art.
Yeah, in 2004, I happened to get a hold to a magazine which carried an article about a blind photographer who was based in Paris. So after I got in touch with him and about 2 years of independent research, I started this project called Blind with Camera in Bombay with just one student. The aim was to teach photography to the visually impaired and to use those pictures for empowering them. So we started with a workshop teaching photography to the visually impaired, and the pictures that used to come out of it, we used to exhibit in mainstream galleries across India and some in abroad as well. The project gave a lot of insight into the visual thinking of the visually impaired. It gave them a new voice for equality. It gave them dignity and new hope, and it hugely sensitized the whole society that even a photograph taken by a visually impaired has a merit to get exhibited in the mainstream galleries, and it was a great social equalizer that if they can take photographs, if we give them equal opportunity in other fields, they can do at par with anybody else. See, first we need to understand when I meet a student who is visually impaired, I need to understand what kind of blindness he has. So technically there are three kinds of blindness. One is a born blind or an early blind, then a late blind, and somebody who could see partially. So every one of them has a different need. So the training module actually has different sub-modules for each of them. Like somebody who is born blind, we never tell them what a beautiful shadow or a sunset would be, because he goes mostly by the touch and the sound, warmth of light, and his whole intuitive senses. That's one part of it. Somebody who is late blind and has memory of his sight, so he always tries to remember what he has seen earlier and try to relate it to the visual reality around him. Somebody who is partially sighted, like it can be from 5% sight to 40% sight. For him, they use most of their sight, that is leftover sight, or we call it as a residual sight, to take a picture. So they rely less on the touch and the sound and the intuitive senses. So having said that, but the module at a final stage reaches to a similar, or rather a common platform where all the three categories can work together. So it always starts with understanding the camera, how the camera functions. Like we used to start with, in 2006 we started with film cameras, and then we graduated to digital camera. We still go back to film camera using pinhole cameras and all. So first stage is understanding the camera. The second stage is how you compose pictures, or rather how you take a picture using the other senses. When I say other senses, touch, sound, warmth of light, smell, even source of smell, and their own intuitive senses, their memories. So all together, put together, how you click a picture. See, a blind lives a life of its own, right? And we as an outsider always try to sympathize that. But that's not the case. He himself on his own has his own challenges, but he lives his life like I and you live it, right? And when you live your life, you have to build images in your mind, right? So you want to go from X point to Y point. At every stage, to reach from X to Y, you have to build your images, right? But those images never had a purpose to communicate outward. So through this workshop, we strategize those mental images and give them a purpose to communicate outward. So we teach them, you have been doing an activity by building images. Now the challenge is you have to capture those images and tell a story. So every picture has a story. So if I show you a picture and if I don't tell you it is taken by a blind, the picture stands on its own merit, right? And the camera doesn't know who is holding the camera. It can be a blind or a non-blind person. It's only when you tell ki there's a story behind it and this is the guy who has taken the picture, who can't see or maybe see little, then the dimension actually changes. Because there's always, even for you and me, we always click a photograph because there's a purpose to that photograph, or something triggers us to take that photograph. For them, the triggering is just the same, but they have a more intense experience of taking those photographs. So after they have taken the photograph, what we do is we exhibit those photographs. Now in an exhibit, we do it through a inclusive way. See, a photograph by the blind should be for the blind as well. So we convert those pictures into a tactile pictures, which is called touch and feel pictures. Technically, it's called touch and feel or a tactile picture. In a normal word, you can say it's an embossed picture. Now somebody can touch the picture and understand it, but touching is not enough. So you need an audio description or somebody describing the picture. So it can be a person describing it a picture, but in exhibition you cannot have so many people exhibiting, like describing the picture. So we have an audio described, a pre-recorded audio description of the picture, which tells you what this picture is all about. Because when you touch, it doesn't tell you the emotions. The touch doesn't tell you the colors. You know, the tonal, the whole picture as a whole. You know, touch will tell you only the outlines. So it's like the audio description is done in such a way that it builds a mental image in your mind. Like we hear a lot of plays over radio, right? At that time we are pseudo blind because we can't see the play, right? But it creates a mental image in our mind. Similarly, the first part of the audio description tells what this picture is all about, and the second part actually helps you, saying that you start touching from the left bottom, and as you move your fingers, what is under your finger? It describes that, you know? Yeah. Yeah, coming to the volunteering or the reaching out to the youth and youth connecting with us, I think there has been some youths who have been coming to us as a part of an intern, working with us for different projects. Because I tell you how it works, we don't run this project only in Bombay, we do it in a lot of places. So first thing is I have a train the trainer module where I teach photography to the sighted who intend to become trainers in that local city. So a lot of youth do come in and we train them and they continue with it. So because the biggest challenge is I want to see Partho Bhowmick replicating in every city. Yeah, so there has to be a Partho in Chennai, Bombay, Bangalore, everywhere. No? So the youth can take the lead. Right? I am there to give them all the knowledge that I have and which is still evolving over a period of time. So the youth do contribute, and there are a lot of cases in India where the youth has taken the lead, they haven't done, they are continuing with this workshop in some places. In terms of a path-breaking contribution by this Blind with Camera is, first of all, this is the first time in India and even in Southeast Asia, I think, probably. This is the first time of its kind project. That's the first thing. And the second one is that a lot of non-sighted, basically the blind, visually impaired student have become trainers, and they become trainers along with me. So I have 5 or 6 of them who have become trainers. So they train different blind people. We also run called a blindfold photo workshop. So they contribute to that. They become trainer there as well. So the sighted people are blindfolded and given a challenge is to take photographs. And there my accomplished students, basically the smart ones, are the trainers. So it's a reversal of role where you get into the shoe of a blind photographer and from a blind you learn how to teach, how to take photographs basically. So that's one of them. And the third that has happened is we have come up with 2 books. One is called Seeing Beyond Sight. Okay. It's called See as No Other. So currently we have 2 books. One is titled as See as No Other, which is about the journey of Blind with Camera, and it also has a chapter called Master of Dark Lights, which profiles around 10 blind photographers internationally. And all these 10 photographers and much more has contributed to this Blind with Camera's success. We have another one called as In Touch with Pictures. So it has a collection of 20 pictures where you can see a picture, where you can touch a picture, you can hear a picture. This is probably the first most inclusive photo book where all the senses can be used to enjoy the picture, you know. There have been few more accomplishments, like one of my student called Bhavesh Patel, who was commissioned to shoot Katrina Kaif for a Lux campaign. That was in 2015, and that's one of the path breaking, because before no blind photographer was engaged for a commercial shoot. This is probably for the first time that has happened. And the best part is that Bhavesh was paid as per industry standard, and that I made it a point that this guy need to be paid as per industry standard, which the Unilever and the agency agreed to it and was paid accordingly. So that's been one of the most accomplishing things. Now I have been on board of many of these galleries and other museums and all, to convert those museums into tactile or maybe accessible formats. So all that work is happening. I do get invitations from different countries now to conduct workshops with, I was in Singapore, Malaysia, and I've done it in UK as well, to teach photography to the visually impaired, and so it's spreading its wings. See, I see a very bright tomorrow's India, right? Bright in the sense there are a lot of young guys or young youth of India who see little difference between so-called able and a disabled. I'm coming from my experience of what, you know, and there have been a lot of apps and initiative taken by the youth of India to develop, to bridge this gap. There are a lot of startups who have come up with a lot of apps, okay, exclusively for matrimonials. I'm giving an example, matrimonials for the disabled community in India, which wasn't there. There have been a lot of apps for learning disabilities to help them with them. So I see that a very inclusive India coming up, maybe in another 5 to 10 years from now, and youth has a huge contribution to do to making that happen. Tomorrow's India, let's start with I.